everyone. Once again, it's that time of year, Sci-Fi September. Here I am once again joining my father for another movie review. Say hi, Dad.
Hello.
In today's video, we're going to be touching upon the 1986 remake To the Fly from 1958, directed by David Cronenberg. So, Dad, what do you think of David Cronenberg's Fly remake?
It's an excellent movie.
It is. It is.
It's really, in a lot of different ways, it takes the concept and runs with it.
Absolutely.
It's a lot more scientific.
Absolutely.
I think, and there was a lot more scientific thought that went into the possibility of transferring solid matter, creatures, beings from one spot to the next, and what could happen if there was a mix-up in the chromosomes, in the genes.
Yeah.
And there are great performances. Fantastic. Jeff Goldblum is just amazing in it.
Yeah, he is. He's excellent. And this is another one of those things where I have like a neutrality, loving the original Fly and this remake, because this is another example of a great horror sci-fi remake where you have, like in the original, the guy turns into the Fly after the teleportation, whereas in this, after the teleportation, he slowly, progressively turns into the Fly, which I thought that's a really great, change up and turn up. And also in the original, he was a married man who was neglecting his family, whereas in this, he's not married. He develops a mutual love for Gina Davis's character.
Right.
And I don't really remember what her boss's name was. Again, I'll just add that in, as I'm editing this video. He's basically the Vincent Price character of the film, but the difference is he's a much bigger jerk Vincent Price character was a gentleman. This guy is not much of not a gentleman, but three-dimensional at times.
Yeah. He definitely is not a sympathetic character.
No, well, to a certain degree, but then after the whole the teleportation, and besides also he slowly transforms into the Fly, it's also altering his personality.
Right. Mm-hmm.
He's he's cocky. He thinks that he's full of he's full of energy, and he thinks that he can he's invincible, he can do whatever he wants.
Right.
Which is also another great change up for this remake.
Yes, it is, and I think that's one of the brilliant aspects of the movie, that the human character undergoes a very gradual change as into a Fly.
Yeah.
And the special effects are just
they're
marvelous.
But I'll admit, I think I saw this first before the original, not knowing that there was an original. I just assumed that this was its own thing. But gotta start somewhere. I think there's a lot of people out there who may have been introduced to this before they knew about the 50s Fly version with Vincent Price.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, for what I remember reading about, I read that Jeff Goldblum wrote Vincent Price a letter at the time when this film was being released, saying how much he loved the original, and also inviting him to the premiere of it. I mean, I don't remember how Vincent Price's reaction. I don't remember him saying that he hated it. I don't think it wasn't his kind of.
I read that he was very grateful. That he wrote him that letter.
Yeah,
and he said that he liked it, but he said that it was a little bit too much.
Which I can see why. Yeah. Different time period in his head.
I mean, back in his day, horror was more
suspense, thriller, and
right. It was not as graphic as it was or is today, or back when they made The Fly.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things that made it innovative too, because it was so graphic.
This was also the first thing I ever saw of David Cronenberg. I had no idea who he was, how he's such a big name and reputation horror, especially how he's made such great horror films like Scanners, Dead Ringers, Videodrome, Shivers, Rabbit, and besides that, he's also done other things too. He did M Butterfly, which is more of based on an opera.
No, it's based on a Broadway play.
Oh, okay, bro. I'm sorry.
Which is based on the story of.
Right.
Well, not really. It's not really.
I never saw, but I'm familiar with the premise of what it's about.
Right.
And he also did Crash, which we have that in Criterion, but I've not seen it.
Yes.
And he also did History of Violence, which that's not a horror film, but still, it's. I heard that's supposed to be a good one of his.
It is a very good movie.
Yeah. And people point him out as he's the Kubrick of horror film, because he's not just the one-time you don't watch his movies once. You watch them like multiple times to understand his deeper meanings behind. I mean, like you said once, he's a body horror.
Right.
Cronenberg.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very big on like the biology of horror movies. Man, if I wish my biology professor would have let me watch his films. But anyway, also like as we said before, the special effects are great. I like how like at the end of the film, like where Seth like spits on Gina Davis's ex-boyfriend, how like his arm falls off, his leg falls off, and that's where you feel a little bit of sympathy for the guy.
Right, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true because he was there defending her.
Well, he was because he wanted to teleport her, and you're like rooting for him, like no, stop this guy from stop Seth from trying to transport her and making her into one too.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess Seth sort of like felt like maybe if he did something like that, he wouldn't feel as like lonely with yeah. And also remember like the arm wrestling scene that like when even like no matter how many times I've seen this, I always like still like freaked out and so like
Mm-hmm.
And true story, I have not arm wrestled ever since I saw that film. I refuse to arm wrestle no matter how much of people can insult me or call me a wimp. That's fine because I'm not breaking my wrist for to win an arm wrestling match. And it's also like besides like the horror behind it, it's a very like sad tragedy of like
it is
similar to like Bride of Frankenstein in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
It's like darn, they really don't make these kind of like horror films like they used to with such great like tragedy at the end.
Yeah.
Because at the end, she has to kill him, but she doesn't want to. But she doesn't have much of a choice because there was no way of like fixing it.
No. And was there you definitely developed an empathy for these characters.
Yeah.
They,
just as much as the original.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like, Seth goes from being this, like, lovable, funny, quirky guy to a little bit cocky after when he's teleported. I remember a while ago I did a review with my friend Christian on his channel where I just, like, recorded and I sent it to him. When I was, like, listening to his thoughts on the film, I thought he gave a good, like, point about how is it possible that when Seth, like, teleported himself that maybe, like, this is not the real Seth, that maybe the real Seth died, and this is, like, maybe a clone of Seth, possibly. Which, it's a good point. I thought that was a good, like, I never would have thought of it that way, but that's a good, like, a good opinion that I never...
He certainly wasn't the same person.
No, definitely not, no. It all begins, like, when they're at that coffee shop. He's, like, pouring, like, tons of, like, sugar, then asks for a cannoli, and he's, like, just ranting on and on about all this, like, even I wouldn't understand what he was talking about with all the scientific... And not to get, I thought it was funny, like when he asks her on a date, he goes, one more cheeseburger.
Yes. Yeah.
Jeff Goldblum's just one of those actors, never like fails, and even if he's in a bad movie, he can still make the best of it. Yeah. He's a funny guy. I love Jeff Goldblum. Yeah.
So apparently there was a problem with the baboon.
Yeah,
because baboons aren't very cooperative, from what I understand.
Right now.
And apparently Jeff Goldblum really worked out.
Really.
And he's a tall guy. I think
he
was like 6'4" or something. And he was able to present himself as the dominant figure, and the baboon, I guess, sort of responded to that.
Yeah.
And he was able to control, along with the trainer, obviously.
I remember when
he was able to help control the baboon.
I remember as I'm watching, I was thinking to myself, aren't baboons supposed to be a dangerous, like, monkey? Like, even though I'm not I'm not a zoologist, but I know that they're a little bit not friendly.
Yeah.
It's... Yeah, because I'm thinking to myself, who would have, like, a baboon for a pet?
Yeah, I know.
But then again, you can also point he was really just there for, like, experimenting to see, like, how, like, well, obviously it didn't work out for the first baboon because he died in the first failed teleportation experiment. And then he tries again with the brother, and I guess somehow the brother was lucky and said, sorry I killed your brother. Yeah. Also, I remember like reading about how when this film came out, people thought this was a response to the AIDS epidemic at that time, but Cronenberg said that was a good guess, but he said really it was more of like a metaphor for like old age 10 times faster, which I can definitely see it because that's the whole point. Like when he slowly becomes a fly, he's aging 10 times faster.
Yeah. But at the time, AIDS was very prominent. And it was there was no cure for it.
No.
So people died very frequently at young ages, and seeing what's happening, and they were also, very, very, very sick,
Yeah.
and they were transformed into almost skeletons.
Right.
So you could see where that people would think, well, gee, this looks like a metaphor
For
for
AIDS.
AIDS.
When you also think about it too, when she finds out that she's pregnant with this child, she wants an abortion. I can think of that as like metaphor at the time with people who had like unprotected sex, and
Mm-hmm.
because Seth, like they don't know like whether Seth could have been like contagious or not,
Right.
and
Right.
because think about it, people who had unprotected sex and they were pregnant, they were worried like, oh no, what if my unborn baby is gonna be
Right. Right.
born with HIV
Right.
or
That's
AIDS,
right.
like
Right. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that scene like with the when she goes to the abortion clinic and the gynecologist was
Right.
David, which as a kid I never would have guessed that was
Right.
because he's wearing a mask. It's obvious you can't recognize that was David Cronenberg. You would have thought that was just some like
Yeah.
either a random actor or maybe it could have been at the time. I used to think that was a real gynecologist at the time seeing
Mm-hmm.
this film, and
Mm-hmm.
and the reason I read the reason why Gina Davis wanted him to do like the gynecologist because she trusted him out of
Mm-hmm.
I guess whatever works for
Yeah.
Gina Davis. I
Right.
guess
Mm-hmm.
she also does a great job. And I tell you, too bad she's not around that much anymore. Gina Davis.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like back in the '80s, like she was big and around
Right.
a lot, but
Right.
then
Mm-hmm.
she just disappeared after a while. Like, I don't know like what like caused her to like go to disappear on hiatus.
I don't know. I mean, she another great movie. She was in Thelma and Louise.
That was a good one, and also she was in Beetlejuice. And
Beetlejuice. Yeah.
Toots. Well, she's in Tootsie, but it's only a small part. I don't think she was a nobody at that time. So
Yeah. I mean, I know she. I don't know. I don't remember the arc of her career,
yeah,
but I know that there was one movie that was very expensive, and her husband at the time directed it. Rennie Harlan.
I've heard of him.
Cutthroat Island, I think it was.
Never heard or saw that one.
And that was an office box office bomb,
Right,
and the critics didn't like it either,
right,
and it lost a lot of money.
Right.
So I don't know when that was in her career.
right. I don't know if you know there was a sequel to this movie.
Yes,
Yeah, did you ever see it?
I did not.
I did. You didn't really miss much. I don't think it was terribly bad. It's just that it's just like it's not the same like quality like this movie, and I think it was a film that was like okay, it was bad, but I don't think it was not like the worst thing. Is like because when it came out, it had a bad reputation, and throughout the years, in recent years, it's developed a cult following.
Mm-hmm.
It has a good like all-star cast, and I thought surprisingly the special effects in that film were okay. And I mean they're not great like they are in this film. They're not as like bad as like worse other like special effects in a film, and again Eric Stoltz was a good actor, but again just not as like tragic like Jeff Goldblum's character.
Mm-hmm.
He plays Seth's son, and Gina Davis was not in it. She was asked to, but she said no, but she dodged the bullet on that one.
Mm-hmm.
Only the ex-boyfriend from this film is the only recurring character in the sequel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But he's not really in it that much. Like when, again, same premise, he's going through the changes, he's aging faster, he's slowly becoming the Fly. They go to him asking for advice, but it's like, yeah, I felt this scene was kind of like, I mean, it was good to see his character, but it's like kind of pointless. Like he doesn't really like give much advice to.
Mm-hmm.
And remember Spaceballs?
Yeah.
Daphne Zuniga.
Zuniga. Yeah.
Zuniga's in it as the love interest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's not that their chemistry was terrible. It's not as like very tragic like Seth and Gina. Like the first film.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also weird too how like his character is like he was after when he's like born, he like grows up so fast. There's a scene where they're celebrating his 5th birthday, but yet he's in the body of a 20-year-old. There's a sex scene in the film. I think to myself, wait a second, wouldn't this count as jailbait though?
Mm-hmm.
Because she never like finds out that he is like despite he's like looks like he's 20 years old, but yet he's like 5-6 years old.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
like I saw the film recently because I'm never gonna give it a solo review. This is gonna basically be my thought right here at the end of what I thought of the sequel.
Mm-hmm.
Not terrible or not bad, just potential, but it wasn't. I don't think this film did not need a sequel.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts about The Fly you want to touch upon? Or
No, I think that's it.
all right, so that was our review of The Fly. Stay tuned for the Blob remake. Say bye, Dad.
Take care.